Hey, welcome everybody up to a delayed version of Beyond the Booth, your weekly high school football magazine. Phil, we were delayed because I forgot my phone on Monday, and it was today to get together and actually record this. But welcome aboard. Maybe next week we'll actually get back on Monday.
Yeah, that'll be good because it gets hectic later as the week goes on, especially when it gets toward Friday night anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Big football games in the area on Friday night. Big games in Knoxville this Friday night or Saturday night. A lot of football now as we approach the end of the season. Week 8 in Tennessee's wrapped up. We're into week 9. I think in Alabama, technically it's called week 7, but really you're almost there too.
Yeah. We have a week 0, so this is an important region back in region play, of course. Of course, we had region games last week, but important region games this week because now it gets time where area championships are decided, home playoffs are decided, and who's in, who's out, who the pretenders are. So this week is very important because things really take shape this week.
Absolutely. And Sequatchie County, where I'm normally at on Friday night, is on a bye this week, Phil. And if folks will tune in to River City Media, I'll be sending live updates, some level of semi play-by-play from the Plainview Sylvania game down on Sand Mountain. And it's nice, Phil, you have been doing this a long time, and I have too. It's nice to get to go to a game and be a semi-fan, actually.
Yeah, well, tomorrow night I'm going to see, they moved the Pisgah and North Sand Mountain game to Thursday, so I'm going to go watch it tomorrow night. So I'll get to go watch one for a change. So looking forward to that. And, of course, we've got, Friday night coming. I don't get to see any games, but I get to be involved in a lot of them, though, in a different way.
Absolutely. Of course, Phil's on the studio show of Alabama's Best post-game show on WQSB with our friend Jeff Allen, Hall of Famer Jeff Allen, I should say. Phil, it must be nice, Hall of Famer and a Hall of hot dogs there in one studio.
Yeah. Jeff does a wonderful job. He's very professional at what he does, and he's well thought of, and the show's well thought of, and it's professionally done. And it didn't happen overnight. It takes a big staff too. People was asking how many of us it takes. We've got 2 out in the field that helps us out, and there's 2 in the other room. One mainly keeps up with their top 10. One answers phone calls. Of course, they both answer phone calls. Then you have me and Jeff, and then the young man that runs the board, and he also is searching for scores. So basically, there's 7 of us involved in the scoreboard show, and that makes it what it is. I mean, you have to have a good staff, and we've got one.
Well, Phil, sometimes I feel like you are I'm going to say something here and give a plug to somebody that doesn't sponsor us, but Coach T in Tennessee has a statewide scoreboard, and you all have that statewide scoreboard also, where if you're not able to listen to the show, you can come in later on and see every score in the state practically.
Yeah, definitely. So, because we keep up with everybody. And the thing is, Randy, what's kind of funny is most of your scoreboard shows, the television stations monitor our broadcast or follow us on apps or follow us online to get their scores, especially the TV stations out of Huntsville. So we get them all, quicker than everybody else. So we got so many people behind the scenes working for us. And also the people, the audience out there texting the scores and giving us live updates. So, there's a lot behind all that.
Absolutely. Well, and Phil, it's always, I always say it, and I get in the car, and I pretty well know the Tennessee scores because I'm getting the AP updates to give them on the air. But I get in the car, and the first thing I do is turn you and Jeff Allen on. So it's not like I'm not a listener myself, but I'll let you give some of those Alabama scores in a minute. We'll finish up with Alabama. But let me hit with Tennessee first, Phil, because I think Tennessee is really pushing to a conclusion here, and we kind of start seeing seeding come to play right now. So let's start with and I don't have as many scores this week because I was trying to cut it down to some of the real playoff races. But let's start with one from Knoxville and Cleveland. Bearden slips by Cleveland, and Phil, Cleveland was a team that I felt like 2 or 3 weeks ago was in a position to be seated a little bit higher, but they've dropped a couple of games lately. Still a very dangerous Cleveland team.
Oh yeah, they are definitely dangerous. But the schedule they play, they have got some not many cakewalks on their schedule. So the level of competition and one bad night can be costly to you big time.
Absolutely. Bledsoe County getting healthy finally and also playing well, 35-6 over Polk. Not a lot of, it looks like Bledsoe will probably be the 2 or 3 seed in that region. But it's nice to see Bledsoe just get on a roll. Boyd Buchanan over Lakeway Christian, and Boyd stands to control their own destiny in small school private. And Phil, what was your impression of Gary Rankin leaving Alcoa 3 years ago and coming and taking this Boyd job? Did you think 2 or 3 years out he'd be on position to be the top seed in small
not
class?
Surprised, not surprised. I mean, you go to a private school like that at Boyd Buchanan, and some coaches just have it. They know the right buttons to push, and they don't turn it around quick. It's a slow turnaround, but when they get on top, they remain on top.
Absolutely.
And that, because a lot of times coaches will come in and make a quick impact and have a good season, then they'll kind of level off. Coaches like him, they're going to come in, they're maybe not going to be at their greatest the first couple of years, but then when they get there, they're going to stay there. And, of course, it kind of surprised me that they're undefeated, though, this quick. But, it's a very good football team.
A lot of talent in the pipeline over there, too. They've got they got a great feeder program at Boyd Buchanan. Bradley Central continued to just roll 47 over Hardin Valley. Bradley pushing to be the number 1 seed in that region. Brainerd gets a big win over Central. Feel this Brainerd team has struggled, but they get a 22-20 win over Central. And that's good to see a team that's maybe 1-6, 1-7 get a victory.
Oh, definitely. So, of course, Central was a much-needed win for them, but Brainerd able to pull it off. But, Brainerd, one of them schools that plays a very difficult schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's good to see them pick up a win, and you have to win them close ones. And, of course, I guess, down the stretch, they might be able to slip in, but something got to happen good for them.
Yeah, and I think that does put Brainerd in a position to make the playoffs. Don't know exactly how that region shakes out. Next one up, Phil. I thought this was an upset in my head, and I still think it's an upset. East Ham, 17, Walker Valley, 10. Walker Valley had been dominant at times this year.
Yeah, but I think they've lost their last couple. And I guess East Hamilton maybe one of them schools that's maybe kind of starting to come together for them here at the end of the year. Some schools just that way. They're young, and then the light comes on. And then all of a sudden, they're a lot better football team than they were in the weeks past. And, a fine example of that is Hixson. Games 1 and 2, they struggled to find their identity. But then they got that big win over Ooltewah. They found their identity, and now they're playing their best football. And maybe that's what's happening to East Hamilton.
Well, another example of that would be East Ridge, who started 0-5 and now 3-0 in their last 3 games, gets a 17-14 win over Soddy-Daisy. Coach Barger, who's been a guest on here, I cannot tell you how much respect I have for him. And just to see them get on a little roll here now means a lot over at East Ridge.
Well, that program just had to be patient. I'm sure Coach Barger was too. But, their first 5 games were murderous.
Yeah.
So, they were tough to win, even if you were a great football team. So,
Absolutely.
They got through the hump there, and now they're playing teams that, maybe they're equal to or better than. And maybe that level of competition's really made this team a lot better. And that's what's led to these 3 wins, because mentally they may be tougher than those teams.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And it's one of the programs I think Chattanooga's better when Soddy-Daisy is a little bit better too. And it's, Soddy-Daisy not being in that mix of Red Bank, Hixson, and that it's something missing. And, I'm pretty sure Soddy-Daisy has the resources to get that program turned around pretty fast.
Yeah, they struggled the last couple of weeks big time. I think Hixson put it on them pretty good.
Yeah.
They lose to East Ridge, so things is not going real well this year for Soddy-Daisy. It's been a tough struggle for them.
Giles County 56-6 over Grundy. Sequatchie County's on a bye this week, Phil. But there's a couple more of these type of games. Matter of fact, Sequatchie next week plays Grundy. I think Giles has a bye, and then they've got to finish up with Community, I believe it is. But you've pretty much set up end of the year undefeated region play Sequatchie at undefeated in region play Giles County for that region.
Yeah, definitely. So, because, you're getting down here to the end, and, schools like Sequatchie County, you haven't really mentioned that much, but, they're playing for a home playoff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure they're going to be favored the next week, but then, they're still playing for a home playoff berth, and that's what's happened to a lot of these teams. You get down toward the end, you got to find a way to get in.
Yes. Phil, in a game I was at, and I want to make a few comments on Hixson 24, Chattanooga Prep 0. And Phil, we've always made those guys that go out and ref football games, they do a yeoman's job. They're not full-time refs. This week, there was something happened at the Hixson game where maybe it got away from the refs. That's the best way I can say it. You had 5 or 6 personal fouls offsetting to end the game. They stopped the game with 2 minutes to play in this waylay of a game. And I mean, it really got ugly. And at one point, Hixson got marked off with the 3 personal foul penalties on the same play and something else, too. I don't know how this happened, but ended up losing 50 yards on one play. And I'm not criticizing the referees, but especially the head ref, you can't just stay neutral sometimes. You can't just call offsetting. And that game got real ugly over there, Phil.
Yeah, because these referees don't want to call personal fouls and unsportsmanlike conduct things, because you see them a lot. Where they'll walk up and walk in between kids, but this happens when you lose control of a football game.
Yeah,
and a prime example, and I'm going to tell you, this happened a couple of years ago in Knoxville when Tennessee played Ole Miss. The officials lost control of that football game. That's what led, everybody's talking about Ole Miss fans throwing stuff down on the band, Tennessee fans throwing stuff out on the field.
Yes.
What happened was the officials lost control of that football game, and it caused all that. So, more than likely, what you're talking about, I see what you're saying is an official's job is to keep control of the football game and make it even for everybody. It sounds like that didn't happen, and you can't let things like that happen.
No, and Phil, unfortunately, one of the situations that occurred during one of these, probably the first or second scrums we had, a player got blocked into or tackled into the Chattanooga Prep bench, and during the melee over there, the Hixson player, probably the Hixson's best offensive weapon, and Coco Kendricks, somebody said something, and I know Coco and know his family, and 100% don't believe it was Coco, but that's the person that they thought said it. Coco gets tossed for the second time this year, and he's going to miss the last 2 games of his senior year, and that's a shame. That's a shame. If Coco did what they said, then it's probably the right punishment. But I don't believe that, and I think the situation was just so cloudy at that point. It's hard to make that call,
Yeah, you're definitely right. Of course, I mean, they have to go with what they got. It ain't always right. It ain't always fair. Because sometimes, kids get penalized and shouldn't be penalized. But, I guess the rules is the rules, and they've got to go by them. You can't change them.
Yeah.
It's just a shame for him. I hate to hear that for any young man that gets thrown out of a game, but that's the rule now. And it's to try to help keep control of a game like that. But like when you're talking about when it gets away from everybody, you're going to have something like that happen.
Yeah. And the only thing I can hope for is that we learn in the future. And I'm involved in Georgia high school football, Alabama, and Tennessee. Let's improve the appeals process and let's go from here. But, don't want to dwell on it. Don't want to talk about it too much. But just shout out to Coco Kendricks, a wonderful young man, currently being recruited by UVA Wise, someone I have a lot of respect for. And I hope this works out best for the Hixson and him. Phil, we'll move on. Chattanooga Prep, by the way, plays number 1 South Pittsburgh this week. Lookout Valley goes down to Huntland 42-7. And Phil, the newly number 1 team in the 2A is Marion County with a 21-12 victory over Forrest. How strange is what I'm about to tell you. In that one small community of Marion County, South Pittsburgh's number 1 in 1A. Marion County is now the new number 1 in 2A. And Whitwell, I think, is the number 9 team in 1A. Unheard of for a small place like that to have 2 number 1 teams in the state.
Yeah, and they can almost spit on each other. So but that is amazing. We kind of have that down here in Alabama. The Sand Mountain schools, there is 3 or 4, and it's kind of strange it being that way. Them being that close together, 3 or 4 schools that are super good. That don't happen very often. So, like what you're talking about, that's probably not going to happen again in our lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's a rare thing because usually if South Pittsburgh's on top, Marion County ain't quite as good, or vice versa.
Yeah.
That's the way it's always been in the past, and because I remember back when Whitwell had their run when they had state championship. Well, Marion County and South Pittsburgh wasn't as good. So usually it's one of them, and the other two's not quite as good. But it's awful strange that all 3 of them's a pretty good football team.
And I've seen both. I've seen all 3 of them, and they all 3 are good football. It's not a fluke, Phil. They're where they're at. And matter of fact, you got a big matchup coming week at 10 of South Pittsburgh, who I think is dominant at Whitwell. That at number 9 Whitwell, that's going to be a heck of a game.
Yeah, definitely so. Of course, the biggest thing is it's going to be tough to beat South Pittsburgh. All they have to take care of business, of course. But in a rival game like that, you never know. Whitwell might put together their best game in South Pittsburgh, kicking around on the field some, and keep Whitwell in that ball game. So you'll never know what might happen, especially when you get this late in the year where weather becomes a factor in some games.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Even cold hour this weekend will be football weather for sure. Let's go on a little farther. McMinn Central over Tyner, 48-34. McMinn County, 49-7 over Howard. Meigs, 39-0 over Pigeon Forge. Notre Dame, 42-15 over Cannon. Oliver Springs, 22-8 over Whitwell. That was a big loss for Whitwell. That's what dropped them. I think they were 4th before. Red Bank over Sequoyah. And finally, let's talk a little bit about Ray County. Kind of gets right, Phil, and gets one over Ooltewah, which I think is one of the most underrated rivalries in the area.
Yeah, it probably is. These 2 are struggling right now. Ooltewah, started out okay at the first part of the year, but it seems like they have just kind of sank as the years gone along. But that's a big win for Ray County to kind of right the ship for themselves. Normally in the last several years, this would have been a great matchup. But right now, this is 2 teams that are kind of struggling, trying to dig their way out of a hole. Just so happened that Ray County won that football game. I heard one of the Ooltewah players got hurt in the game.
Yes.
But I reckon they took him to the hospital, and then he walked out the next day. So I guess it was precautionary, which is good. That's a blessing. I just happened to read the story on TV and saw a comment where somebody knew who the kid was and that he was fine. He walked out of the hospital the next day, which is always good. It doesn't matter who wins the football game. Somebody gets hurt. that's bad. That's always bad.
I've been in a couple of those situations over the last 3 years, two of them in the last 3 years. Both of the situations were, one of them, the player's playing career is probably over. He had a cracked vertebrae, and that's football's small in the world of your health, and the other one was fine. But Phil, they take a lot more precautions than they did a few years ago. If you're knocked out, you can pretty well expect to go to the hospital on a backboard these days.
Yeah, especially, or if a place goes numb on you, like it might just be a shoulder stinger, but if everything goes numb on you, then they're going to take you to the hospital just in case.
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, Sequatchie 58-14 over Community. Silverdale Baptist over Signal Mountain 42-21. Phil, I did want to drop down and highlight a couple of big games this week in the area. We've talked about South Pittsburgh at Chattanooga Prep. They're going to play that game at Howard's new field, Phil, and that'll be a big time environment over there.
Yeah, definitely. That's nice too. I mean, you drive by on the interstate, you look over there at it, they got a real nice track and a real nice field. Of course, they're doing a lot down in that area to kind of make things a lot better around the Howard School area. And boy, that field's a good way to start. It gives those kids something to take pride in, their track program, and then also the football program, because that is a very nice facility.
Absolutely. I love that facility over there. Talking with a couple of Cleveland folks, they've got to right the ship this week, but they get the Maryville Rebels coming to Cleveland, and that's always a big. Anytime you get Maryville in town, that's a big environment.
Well, they've been beat a couple of times, so who knows? Why can't Cleveland do it? Because athletically they can, and like we talked about, you don't ever know. You roll them helmets out there, you roll them footballs out there, and you never know what's going to happen. I'm sure they'll be a little bit of an underdog, but I don't think it's one of those that Cleveland can't win. I think they got the opportunity if they can get a few breaks.
Absolutely. And here in town, Father Ryan comes calling on this McCallie team. And again, Phil, I think McCallie is the class of the state as far as its private schools.
Yeah, definitely. So, boy, I tell you what, that Baylor McCallie game was something else. So,
yeah, it was.
Yeah, and that's a playoff type atmosphere. And this is the same way it's going to be for McCallie with Father Ryan. I'm sure that Baylor McCallie game was a big help to them going into this game because, yes, McCallie's the hunted right now because everybody's kind of pointing toward them. So they're going to get everybody's best. Father Ryan's going to probably play the best game they've played all year. So McCallie will have to execute and play well to win this football game.
And Phil, one more game to hit on in the Chattanooga area. And early in the year, I thought this might be the game of the year. But right now, Red Bank's kind of headed in the wrong direction a little bit. But that Bradley Central team with those two Tennessee signees and their secondary right now, the three starters, two Tennessee's commitments, and a Northwestern commitment, Phil. That's about as good as it gets for high school secondaries. Bradley Central comes to Red Bank to play this weekend.
Well, it'll be a great atmosphere, that's for sure, because they're two old-time rivals. And, yeah, like you said, maybe the little spice is gone from this game, but still, nonetheless, that's one of those you'd like to go see because of the history of both those schools.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Phil, in our abbreviated rundown, let me jump over to Georgia, and then we'll move down to Alabama and just talk about down there because, you have mentioned it, and I just finished up with the Coach Tyler Van show, and that, just think about Sylvania has played Pisgah already, has played Geraldine already, and finished the year Week 10 at 5. So some great matchups in Alabama right now. But I want to jump over to Georgia and talk about a few games. Adairsville 55-7 over Ridgeland. In 2 overtimes, Bremen beats Lafayette 34-28. And Phil, that had to be a barn burner.
Yeah, definitely so. I bet you that was one to watch. Of course, a lot of the schools around the North Georgia area, these rivalry games have been very good.
Yes.
I know just like, for instance, with Gordon Lee, they won 2 1-point wins in the last couple of weeks. So all these North Georgia schools, there have been some very good matchups down to the wire games.
Yeah, in one of those games, let me give you this. Calhoun 56-35 over Hiram. And here was probably the game of the week. Cola Creek 13, Ringo 7. Phil, from what I heard, they was about ready to tear down Cola Creek after this one.
Yeah, because they're next door neighbors. They're right on top of each other. So yes, I guarantee you that's a big rivalry there. And Cola Creek is not one bitty. No. That's a huge win for that program.
That's a huge win for that program. Cedartown 47 over Heritage Central 45. Let me get down here a little bit to there. Dalton 42, Woodland Barbary 7, Darlington 35, Chattanooga 7. And here you go, Phil. Those Gordon Lee Trojans in a big rivalry game over LFO 42-35.
Yeah, their last 3 games have been close, but all of a sudden, Gordon Lee's 5-2, so things are going well right now. It's a very young team at the first part of the year, but they've kind of found their way, and they're winning these close games. And you can't say enough about winning those close games because they're huge confidence builders.
Well, and two, you've got 1A Gordon Lee against not a great 5A, but it's still a 5A school in LFO. And anytime the 1A school comes out on the winning side of that, given just the numbers, it's a big game. And it's a big upset to me.
Yeah, well, definitely so. But, of course, they're big rivals, too. Of course, Gordon Lee's got a lot of natural rivals. They're right in the central part. There's several around them, Trine and Lafayette and Lakeview and Ringgold and all those, and Ridgeland and all, and they're right in the middle of all that. So, really, Gordon Lee, every week they play as a rival.
Yes.
And and of course, you want to play your neighbors if you can.
North Mary 56 over Gordon Central 7, and Tryon 49 over Coosa 6. Phil, I feel like North Georgia, we've seen the team struggled in North Georgia. No real clear, this team has dominated that team. Even Calhoun feels a little down. But North Georgia is kind of like Tennessee the next 2 weeks. It's going to shake out who gets in the playoffs, who don't. A lot of region games in North Georgia over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, some big games. Of course, 2 teams you do point to in North Georgia that's going to be contenders come playoff time. That's going to be Trine and Darlington. There's no doubt about those 2. That's 2 good football teams. Darlington's good every year, but Trine, this may be one of their better football teams. So keep an eye on them. Of course, Calhoun's going to make some noise in the playoffs. I think you kind of point to Trine. Of course, I think they'll end up running into Darlington at some point.
Yeah, that's about to say that.
When these 2 gets together in the playoffs, it ought to be a day.
Yeah. Trine is one of those schools that has at times been dominant this year and beating a Coosa team. You just tell me at the beginning of the year, Trine beats Coosa by 6 touchdowns, and I'm just going, that's an incredible year for Trine. But I do like this Darlington team. We saw them, that's not a bad Chattanooga team that they beat 35-0 this week.
No, because they've gotten better. Chattanooga has played better the last 2 or 3 weeks, but Darlington's just got. They just got athletes galore. They're one of those that's the measuring stick game. So they're going to be good all the time. So it's going to be tough to beat them on any level.
Phil, before we jump over to Alabama, like I said, we just finished up the Coach Van show. We have a segment on there every week where we just pick games, and not really turning this into SEC pick'em contest here, but they are some good games in the SEC. Auburn, LSU, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas A&M. It's a good week to sit home with Flipper and watch some football if that's what you prefer to do. Now, I'm personally going to go get Neyland and make some noise, but it is definitely feeling more cooler weather. You had the Mocs 52, losing by 2 in a great shootout. It's really getting football season.
Yeah, definitely. So, and another one you didn't mention, Arkansas and Alabama. I know Alabama's a heavy favorite over Arkansas, but Arkansas always gives Alabama a fit, so that's going to be good too.
Yeah,
I think that game's going to be closer than what the point spread is.
I think.
Alabama has improved a lot, but for some reason Arkansas seems to give them a fit this time.
I don't think people realize how good KJ Jefferson is. That Arkansas team ain't great, but KJ Jefferson, I almost feel like times watching him is like when Josh Dobbs was at Tennessee, and they were never world beaters, but you could tell Josh Dobbs is better than anybody on the field.
Yeah, well, offensively, they're going to give Alabama fits. It's just on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know if Arkansas can really slow Alabama down.
And Jalen Milroe, I mean, I'll give him credit. He's the last 2 weeks probably the best football Milroe's ever played in his college career.
I'll tell you something. I mean, people was on it. I know he threw an interception last week at the first part of the ball game, but he's played pretty well. I mean, after that, he played a pretty good game, and he's still getting hit in the face, being flushed from the pocket. So, but he made some plays against Texas A&M under heavy pressure. So he's not bailing out of there now like he did, but he's still taking some shots. He's hanging in there. That shot he took in the back, my Lord, I don't know how he got up from that one.
No.
I mean, he lost the football, and son, I know that hurt. But the one thing I saw, and of course, people don't pay much attention to this. When he got up, he shook it off. He didn't blame nobody. He didn't say nothing to nobody. He went back to the huddle and continued on to the next play. So, that's what's good about that, because if he would have pointed a finger or chewed somebody out, then you don't have team leader. But he went back to the huddle and just, shook it off, because somebody made a mistake, didn't check backside, got him, got his clock cleaned. So, but, hats off to him, because he handled that situation very well.
And you just got to feel, I know we're headed to the third Saturday in October next week, and you just hope Tennessee and Alabama go out and handle business and set up that big 5-1 versus 5-1 matchup down in Tuscaloosa next week.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be a dandy. I think both those teams are starting to come together in jail, where both of them struggled at the first part of the year, but both of them, I think, have kind of found their identity. And if they both take care of business this week, then that game next week will be very good.
And if either one of them gets caught looking ahead, it's going to be trouble for them this week. That would be my prediction. I don't
think they will, Randy, because I don't think either one of them is confident enough to have a poor game and be able to win.
No, I agree.
In the past, these two maybe could have a bad game and still win a football game. They neither one of these are dominant enough to do that, so they're going to have to play their best just to win. Because I think Alabama and Tennessee both are really good football teams. Now, great football teams, they may be by the end of the year, one or both of them, but they're not quite there yet.
And I think, we're both Tennessee fans. We don't make a secret of it. I think some of the general public is misreading this Tennessee team, because it's not Hendon Hooker and 450 yards and Jalen Hyatt winning the Blendikoff. It is really a rush the passer, run the football team. It is really get in your face and get after you football.
Yeah, a lot more physical. They put pressure on the quarterback they hadn't done in the past. We've got three really good running backs that are fresh, and so that's what's been the plus of this football team is, early in the ball game, we'll struggle a little bit to execute when Tennessee tries to, but when they decide they want to run the football, teams have had trouble stopping them.
And Joe Milton just needs to be efficient and don't turn the ball over and not try to be the superhero and just play. And when he does that,
he hasn't really tried to do that. He made one poor throw last week that led to an interception, or a week before last.
Yes.
But I think one thing that's helped Tennessee is getting Cooper Meigs back.
100%.
I think, two positions on the offensive line you can't afford to have injuries, and that's your left tackle, because he's always the backside guy, and your center, because your center can help your quarterback get out of bad plays.
Yeah.
And he calls the blocking up front, but he also can help the quarterback get out of a bad play. And a good center will make your quarterback better. People don't realize that, but it helps.
Well, they even talked about this week in some of the press that when Tennessee goes to audible, that line of communications between Meigs and Milton to kind of put their heads together and come up with a play on the fly. And they talked about Cooper's having an input to Joe, unlike any other player, and center probably in the SEC. That Cooper is very open with Joe when it comes to play calling and at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it's always good to have somebody stand up there in front of you that knows what's going on in front of you.
Yep.
And that's very helpful to a quarterback. Very helpful. And it also helps the coaching staff, too.
Yes. 100%. As a guy who used to get called out the game and ask what they're doing to you. I know you got that a few times.
That used to happen to me a lot.
Yeah. All right, Phil. In this abbreviated edition, and everybody back on Monday this week. I am sorry I did not have my equipment with me on Monday. We'll be back on Monday at our normal time. Let's jump over to Alabama, Phil, and spend the last 15 minutes of the show talking about Alabama high school football.
We'll go over the scores right quick, and then we'll talk about the games coming up. Of course, one kind of surprising score. Lee outscored Fort Payne 49-42. Fort Payne was basically playing for second spot in the region. Well, that was a huge loss. Lee, very athletic team, very improved team, but they held on to beat Fort Payne 49-42. Huntsville won over Albemarle 36-7. Gaston City set a school record in points, 69-0 over Hazel Green. They pretty much sewed up the region over there. There's no doubt about that. And they'll get home field advantage in the first round. This was a big matchup. Guntersville, Guntersville defensively played very well. Created a couple of first-half turnovers. And Scottsboro had the ball a lot of the first half, but they had two crucial turnovers. And in the second half, Guntersville got their running game going and won this one 20-6. It was Sardis over Douglas, 35-21. Sardis now 5-1. They'll host Scottsboro this week. Off to a great start. This team got off to a slow start, but they just keep winning these close games. Next thing you know, now they're all of a sudden 5-1. And this Scottsboro game Friday is a region game at Sardis is a huge one.
Be a good one to see too.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, let's see, Southside, boy, they got a huge win. Leeds, who's ranked in the top 10 all the time. Southside, they've had injury after injury after injury. Lost their quarterback the first game of the year. He's out for the season. But this team just keeps finding a way. Coach Miles Holcomb has done an outstanding job with this group. Southside picked up a huge win over Leeds, 23-13. Aniana Bothwell, I wish I had his stats wrote down. If you could read it, Randy, I don't know if you can go on and see. He's up for Player of the Week, WKSP Player of the Week, and his stats line was just unreal. Like 17 tackles on defense, threw for a 40-yard touchdown pass, ran for like 3 or 4 touchdowns and like 200 yards. I mean, if you could see his stat line, I wish I would have wrote it down and shared that. But Aniana beat Etowah.
I will try to pull that up while you give scores.
Do what?
I'll try to pull up his stat line as you give some other scores.
Yeah, okay. It was just unreal. North Jackson got their first win of the year. That's big for them. Coach Hollis, his team has really struggled. It's good to see them get a win. They beat New Hope 36-20. Geraldine, they knocked off Ohatchee. Ohatchee the last couple of weeks has really struggled. Geraldine beat them 55-6. Hope's Bluff come to Plainview and won a huge game, 28-14, big region win there. Of course, Sylvania, I'm sure you've talked about this. They knocked off Glencoe 56-21, bouncing back from that loss to Pisgah. So a big win. They led 42-7 at halftime. Really no problem there for Sylvania. Piedmont was a 35-19 winner over Steve Smith's Westbrook team. He visited the field of the champions. Piedmont got the best of him this time. That might not happen down the road, but for right now, Piedmont was the better football team. 5 wins again, beat a good Collinsville team 53-6. 5 playing very well right now. Section got their first win of the year. They beat Ider 49-21. North Sun Mountain won again. They've won 4 in a row now. Of course, they play at Pisgah Thursday. They beat Sandrock 47-28. Valley Head, boy, what a game they played. They were down give up some big plays. They were down 20-18 at the half, but just dominated the second half by beating Cedar Bluff 44-20, piled up some 500 yards rushing. And it was an amazing night for the Tigers against one of their arch rivals. Cedar Bluff, a huge region win.
Well, I was pulling up, trying to get the Aniana stats. I pulled up, and it says Titan Blevins for Valley Head High School. 330 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns in a victory over Cedar Bluff.
Yeah, he was one of the spotlight players of the week. But, Fluff Bothwell's in there somewhere. But, yeah, he was one of the highlight players of the week. Titan Blevins, yeah, he had an outstanding game. This is one of those nights I talked to assistant coach John Kirby. He goes, he came into his own. Because he's just a freshman and has done an outstanding job at quarterback, and he's starting to grow up. He really had a great game Friday night. Of course, Woodville, they win again. First, they're off to their best start in school history, 5-1. Have already met. Their all-time wins in a season was 5. They've already met that. They knocked off Yellowsville 23-6. And the last game of score-wise, Spring Garden beat Talladega County Central 51-23.
Fluff Bothwell of Aniana High School. Fluff rushed for 265 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 receptions for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. Completed 1 pass for a touchdown, had 17 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 sack, and the Redskins win. Wow, what a night.
Yeah, that's a career. I mean, that came across that we got that information while the scoreboard show was going on, and we were just both like, me and Jeff both were just like, wow. Of course, Fluff Bothwell, he's already committed to South Alabama, so he's going to continue his career. And if he keeps playing like that, he may get a little better look. He's one of those players I think that might, because he's just a playmaker. I mean, these kids, they're special, players like that. He's maybe not got the speed, but you get down there in South Alabama, and who knows? He may end up transferring somewhere bigger, but I think he's going to be a good player for South Alabama and the Jaguars.
The one thing about it, Phil, I always think about Dale Jones at Bradley Central that went on to Tennessee to be an all-SEC player. And all anybody ever said about him was he was a step slow, he wasn't big enough, and then he just gets that opportunity to walk on at Tennessee and ends up as an All-American there. So,
yeah, because you don't ever know. You can't measure a guy's heart.
Official name is Marion Bothwell from Aniana, class of 24, committed to South Alabama. Offers from Austin Peay, Eastern Michigan, Jacksonville State, and Navy. So pretty good list there. You might see. Wouldn't be shocked if he's playing like that to see that bump. Maybe somebody else come calling his way.
Yeah, well, of course, the one thing about it, if you get to watch him, if you get to South Alabama and get to watch him on TV, you're going to remember his name, that's for sure. Yeah,
I like Fluff better than the Marion.
Yeah, I guess that kind of should, but that Fluff Bothwell is that's a name you don't forget, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, this week's games, we'll talk about them just a little bit. Of course, Thursday night, Pisgah is honoring all former head coaches at Pisgah High School. They decided to do that. They've moved their game with North Central Mountain to Thursday night. I'm going to try to go watch that one.
That should be
it's a big region matchup. Of course, Pisgah, it's going to come down to, of course, Pisgah got to take care of business against North Central, but it's looking more and more like it's going to come down to that 5 Pisgah game to decide the region title.
I got to give a shout out to Coach Pruitt there. He didn't let the big win over Sylvania affect him the next week. Kids got ready and played hard.
Yeah, of course they played, Whitesburg Christian. They did I think they did a little extra thing this week that they normally wouldn't do. They left a little early, went to a movie and ate and all that stuff. Made a big deal out of it. Made a big road trip out of it.
Yeah.
And because they ended up playing just over at Gurley at the old Gurley High School, their old Gurley football field. I thought when somebody told me they were playing over, I thought they might have been playing at Madison County High School, but no, they played at Gurley's old Gurley football field when they played last week against Whitesburg Christian.
Oh, wow.
But they picked up a huge win, and they continue to get off to that fast start. Man, they just jump on you early and just stomp your throat, and then eventually they'll pull off the accelerator. But it's unreal. Of course, we talked about the Sylvania and Pisgah game. That was a good game for both teams because I think both teams needed to play 4 quarters. I know Coach Darwin, who's the principal at Pisgah, told me, said in the 4th quarter, since Pisgah players haven't been used to playing 4 quarters, they had some cramping issues in the 4th quarter. So it was good for them to get to play a 4-quarter game against Sylvania. Mm-hmm. I think it made both teams better.
Well, and then Sylvania come back this week, and I get to see the huddle film. Coach Van includes me in that group, and Phil, it was the most workmanlike. It's the most workmanlike Sylvania team I've seen in 2 years. Just went out and played through everybody on the bench, and it may not have been the best team in that region, but you still, coming off a big defeat, you want to get back and put your best foot forward.
Oh, yeah. You close ranks, because all the rah-rah going around you is a lot of distractions, and nobody likes to lose, but sometimes it's a wake-up call. All those distractions start, all the chatter stops, and then you just go back to work and go about your business. And, that's one of those you're going to look back and go, yeah, we lost that game, but it may have done us some good.
Yeah, and then, of course, got to get right.
And sometimes that happens to teams. It just happens. I mean, we'll look at – I'm going to give you a fine example right here. Look what happened to Tennessee. All this hype. You go down to Florida and you lay it in.
Yeah.
Ever since then, Tennessee's improved. You close ranks. All that chatter stops because you can't win but one game at a time. And everybody was trying to figure, we're going to be 6-0 when we play Alabama. Well, you can't play but one game at a time. And I think the players will get caught up in that too, so will coaches. But then when all of a sudden you get smacked in the mouth, you step back and say, hey, wait a minute here. We got to take this one play at a time.
Well,
and kids start listening. They start taking coaching. When you're winning all the time, sometimes they don't listen. But when you lose one, you get their attention.
And, Coach Van talked about the schedule they'd played, which is no secret. And, you'd already played 2 or 3 really high-profile matchups. And then, again, you've got Plainview this week, And I do think you have a valid point that this, just talking to the kids, Coach Van, and I really think it's a focused football team right now. And Coach Van said it on the air tonight. He said, he said, don't misunderstand me when I say this. He said, we're a great team, but we're a great team of teammates. Not that 5-1 makes us great. We're just a great unit of teammates playing together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he's really proud of how this team came together after that heartbreaking defeat to Pisgah.
Yeah, well, they're too mature, and they're too many upperclassmen to let that one ruin their season because it wasn't even a region loss, but It was a good game for you.
Yes.
You learned a lot. You learned what your weaknesses were. You learned what your strengths were. Because a Pisgah's a team is going to show you what your weaknesses are.
Yep.
Just like Sylvania showed other people what Pisgah's weaknesses are. So there's no secret about it. You just have to find a way. Then you correct those weaknesses, what you can. Some of them you can't correct, but a lot of them you can. But that's why you play games like that. You learn so much about yourself.
Hey, and still yet we've got Pisgah and 5, Sylvania and 5 still to come down the road.
Well, other games we'll go over with them. Pleasant Valley plays Spring Garden. That's a non-region game. Cedar Bluff, of course, Coosa had to forfeit 5 games. That kind of, we'll touch on that just a little bit. Coosa's had to forfeit 4 wins. They had beaten Valley Head. They had beaten Decatur Heritage. It was on top of the region, but all of a sudden they had to forfeit 4 games, and now they're in the bottom, and they're going to have to win their last 3 playoff games, their last 3 region games, just to qualify for the playoffs now. So Coosa's coming this game 1-5, takes on Cedar Bluff. Of course, Cedar Bluff lost to Valley Head last week, and we'll see what Coosa's got now. Some of their players were ruled ineligible. Of course, we've also had 2 other schools that had to forfeit games out here in Alabama. One was Pell City. They only had 1 win, but they had to forfeit it because they had an illegal player. And then Viger had one win. They had to forfeit it because they had an illegal player. So it looks like the State Athletic Association is starting to crack down on people.
Yes, sir.
Just a little bit. And it needs to be done. I mean, you need to do things the right way. When you cut corners, you're going to get in trouble. So you need to do things the right way.
Well, I know the eligibility standards in Tennessee, they're very black and white as far as moving schools, and and sometimes you end up being the school that don't like it. You might lose a player, but if your family moves 35 miles away, and to stay at Tennessee, you're immediately eligible. So that's kind of the golden line in Tennessee. If you want to transfer, it's got to be over 25 miles.
Yeah, in other words, basically your family's uprooted and moved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't just go. You just can't just go move across town.
Nope. You have to set out a year if you move within 25 miles.
That's I hadn't heard it put that way. But that's pretty interesting because that keeps you from just changing schools just because you want to, and your family rents an apartment across town.
Yeah, we lost a player this year from Sequatchie County. It's been on the air with me, Coach Calvin Gidley and Ricky Gilly. They Coach Gilly moved to South Pittsburgh, and South Pittsburgh and Sequatchie is 27 miles apart. So when you make that move, you're immediately eligible. If it would have been 3 miles this side, he couldn't have went to Whitwell and been eligible because that would have been within that radius. But by moving to South Pittsburgh, you're eligible. And I think it's good that it's clearly defined and that there is a zone.
Yeah, so I guess that's where these kids run into. Like, I know Boo Carter was originally going to go to Brainerd, but he wouldn't have been eligible, and he ended up going to Bradley Central
to get outside of the halo.
And then the other kid that was at Chattanooga Christian last year, he moved to
South Pittsburgh. Yes.
So evidently they had to fall under that road. In other words, the kid at Chattanooga Christian couldn't go to any play anywhere in Chattanooga.
Yes. Well, Boo played basketball at Brainerd and was eligible for basketball because he had not played at Chattanooga Christian. Then when it come springtime and they filed his eligibility papers, he was going to be ruled ineligible. So that's when his family left Brainerd and moved to Bradley Central, which is outside the mileage bubble for Chattanooga Christian.
Yeah, it sounds like it turned out pretty good for him.
Yeah.
You hate to see kids move like that, but sometimes you have to. You know.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see other games going on. Let's see. Woodville and Decatur Heritage. Of course, we talked about Woodville's at 5-1. Decatur Heritage right now leading the region, so this is a huge matchup. Woodville's got 3 very tough region games coming up, so they're going to have to win one, probably get in the playoffs. And of course, this is a record-setting season for them, but they've got a big matchup against Decatur Heritage over at Trinity. Decatur Heritage playing their home game at West Morgan High School in Trinity. Valley Head, they host Appalachian. This is a huge region matchup. Appalachian beat Woodville, so Appalachian's in the hunt for a playoff. Really in this region that Valley Head's in, there's really 5 teams playing for 4 spots. So somebody's going to get left out. So games this week are very important as Valley Head hosts Appalachian this week. Of course, Sandrock goes to 5. Collinsville is at Ider. Whitesburg Christian is Section. Section going to try to make it 2 in a row. Ohatchee, a big region matchup. They play at Hope's Bluff. Glencoe plays at Piedmont. Of course, we've talked about the Plainview-Sylvania matchup. Sand Mountain Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Call it whatever you want. These 2 are going to lay it on the line. It was shocking last year that Plainview beat Sylvania.
Absolutely.
So, their kids are going to try to rally around that, and Sylvania's going to try to guard against that happening.
Phil, one question. 100%, if you've got time, you're listening to us, go back and listen to Coach Fanitz. You just took the words exactly out of his mouth. Phil, of those 5 teams in that 1A region, is one of those Coosa, as I understand?
Yeah, Coosa's one of them. So they're playing.
That's the reason they have to win out, or they'll end up 5 in that region.
Yeah, they'll have to win out because they've got, I think it's Cedar Bluff, Woodville, and I can't remember the other one, but they've already, since they had to forfeit, they lost to Decatur Heritage, who leads the leads it right now. They lost it. They ended up losing to Galesville, and they lost to Decatur Heritage, and then Valley Head they had to forfeit too. So they're going to have to win out their last 3 ball games, and I think that's Appalachian, Woodville, and Cedar Bluff. So they'll have to win all 3 just to get into the playoffs. Otherwise, they'll get bumped out.
In that Hokes Bluff Ohatchee game, that's that region, and we've talked about it, that Sylvania, Geraldine, and Plainview's in. That's a big game for somebody that wins that game to get that 4th spot.
Oh, yeah. I think that Hokes Bluff Ohatchee game, I think the loser is probably going to be left sitting outside.
Yes.
So that's a huge game. It's at Hokes Bluff. Both these 2 teams are needing to win. Of course, you've got Piedmont and Glencoe playing also. They're battling for a playoff, a chance to get in the playoffs, especially Piedmont. Piedmont needs a win there too. But yeah, that Hokes Bluff Ohatchee game may be the best game of the night because it's so important.
Yes. And that region, again, is just top to bottom, very good. And you look at that top of that region, you've got the 2 mountain teams and then you've got 2 spots for 4 other teams. And there's going to be at least 1 very good football team at home coming playoff time.
Yeah, one maybe even 2 good football teams will have to stay home. Of course, Geraldine, they're on a roll right now. They're back. I think they've gotten healthy. They play at Westbrook.
Yes.
In another region game. Fultondale plays at Cherokee County. Well, Cherokee County, they were off last week, so they are good. They were state runner-up last year, playing some very good football. They're unbeaten and host Fultondale. Fultondale's a very athletic team that could give them problems, but right now Cherokee County is in their stride. Big region game. Boaz was playing at Arab. We talked about this earlier. Scottsboro playing at Sardis. Well, this is a huge matchup because Scottsboro's trying to finish second in the region. They've already beat Arab. Gunnersville still got to play Arab. So Scottsboro and Sardis, it's a really throw thing because Arab's already beat Sardis. So if Sardis was to beat Scottsboro, you're going to probably run into a 3-way tie, possibly, for second place in that region. So this game is very important for both teams. Of course, May Jemison plays at Gadsden City. Gadsden City will be a heavy favorite there. Fort Payne, if they're getting the playoffs, they've got to win this week. They play at Hazel Green. That's a big matchup for them. Albertville looking for a win there at home against Grissom. If they're going to get a chance to win one, it's going to have to be this week. And of course, North Jackson coming off a big win. They play at Priceville.
Phil, how big was it for North Jackson to get that win? I thought they had a chance to go 0 for the year, and just to get in the W, that's huge for the kids.
Yeah, well, I was kind of worried about because they had gotten behind in the second half. They played very well in the second half, come back and beat New Hope. It was nothing for a long time. But North Jackson played a good second half. Finally, things fell their way, and they got a big win. And this was a winnable game against Priceville. There's no doubt about it. And Coach Hollis, I know he's worked hard. Those kids have worked hard. Things just haven't gone well for them. But, maybe this is a week they can get off the snide and pick up a huge win that nobody expects.
Well, and also it played a very good Scottsboro team. And as I've said, one of the best teams I've seen on paper, South Pittsburgh this year, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Coach, and then, they play Pisgah at the end of the year, too. So Coach Hollis, he's not afraid to play anybody. He wants those natural rivals, because they're money-making games.
Yeah.
When you can play those, and back in the old days when Bridgeport and Stevenson used to play teams like South Pittsburgh and Pisgah.
Absolutely.
Back in the old days, and you lost those rivalries. So, this Pisgah, of course, Pisgah and North Jackson played last year, and they're going to play each other again this year. But that's a great game and a great money game. And like Coach Pruitt told me, he goes, Scottsboro had two or three really good drives, but they ended up fumbling twice, and it was kind of a damp night. And really, what Guntersville did, they took the fullback away, because Scottsboro runs that veer, and runs a lot of triple option out of it. And they were forcing the quarterback to pitch the football. That's what they wanted him to do. And a couple of pitches were just a little bit behind the running backs, and Scottsboro had turnovers. Well, yeah, Scottsboro did have turnovers, but I think that was in the sense where Guntersville forced turnovers by making Scottsboro play out of their comfort zone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Phil, you ready to get back to Monday nights? And, next Monday I will actually have the equipment with me in my home.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a winner. I'm ready for Friday night again.
Absolutely. I can't. I'll be listening to you and Jeff Friday night on my way home after the big Sylvania Plainview game. And Phil, I am going to do some drop-ins for the folks listening from Plainview, Sylvania. It won't be official play-by-play. I don't have equipment with me. I do have some online virtual equipment to let me go live. I don't know what the cell signal will be out there like. So look for some updates, but it's nice just to go as a fan and get to enjoy this game.
Your cell service should be pretty good out there. When I did games in the past, it's pretty good out there. I don't think you'll have any trouble.
I don't either, but I don't want to tell people that I'll be on from start to finish and then get out there and not be able to get on,
Yeah, that's true. But, maybe you'll be all right.
All right, Phil. For Phil, again, next Monday, normal time here on Beyond the Booth, your weekly high school football magazine. For Phil Harris, for Randall Cunningham, go Vols. Have a big weekend. Hope your team wins. It's a shame that any team don't win on football Friday nights. We will see you next Monday with all the results. Good night and God bless.